If you play Dragon Ball Legends in any year, from January all the way to December, you will know that there's not one year that doesn't have downs. Dragon Ball Legends always manages to have some downs, but there will often be a lot of highs too. But right now more than ever, a lot of people have bad feelings towards Dragon Ball Legends based on the experience they're having because of the decisions that developers are making. But if you're asking me, more than ever this year, this is easily the worst it's been as an overall feeling, and just the template of the game being extremely unfair. But it's got to a point where it's kind of predictable now. But if they keep doing this every single year, it could be the case that the downfall of Dragon Ball Legends is inevitable. So I'm gonna run you through exactly how every single year goes in Dragon Ball Legends, but there are some exceptions which I will talk about once we get to certain stages of the year. Let's get into this. So I'm gonna split the year into 4. We've got the first 3 months, January, February, March. Then we get the next 3 months, April, May, June. Then we get the next 3, July, August, September, and then we end the year October, November, and December. Let's start with the first quarter. So typically here, we look forward to what we could get throughout the whole year. Just coming out of the festival from December, there's high hopes for the year going forward, but the game at this point doesn't have a lot of hype because most of the hype has just left because of the festival prior. So the mood of the year is dictated based on how they start. It's not every year that they've started with a bang. Sometimes they've basically just drowned out all the hype. In other cases, they've dropped some bangers. For example, in 2023, when they started the year with Ultra Hit, that was a big drop, but there was the debate of if he's even nice based on his arts card looking real plain.
My time skip is unbeatable.
But the unit was very powerful in ranked PvP. But then in other cases, everybody has the unanimous decision that this unit is beautiful, such as this year, 2025, Gohan and Trunks, because they added the special cutscene and the extra effects in the animation.
Gohan, I did it. I became a Super Saiyan.
Depending on how they start their year, a lot of us players will then decide our feelings for the year going forward based on the initial release, and also predict tags that we could see later in the year off of how the developers decide to start. But there's not much else to talk about at the start of the year. It's really just exiting the festival, hoping they start the year with a bang, and then seeing what else they produce as the roadmap begins to the first celebration of the year, which will be the anniversary. Now, the second quarter of the year, it doesn't really matter what the developers do, and the reason I say this is because we're building right up to the anniversary. April, May, and May is where the anniversary starts, and July, where we'll get to experience the part 1 and in some cases the part 2. The anniversary is going to carry most of the weight, and because it's the anniversary, there's going to be more chrono crystals, better unit releases, more powerful unit releases, and just generally more things to do. So the Dragon Ball Legends player base will increase by quite a margin because the developers are putting out more advertisements. People that don't really feel hype throughout the whole year are coming back to play the game because it's the best opportunity to play the game, as there's a lot to talk about, give opinions on, predict. It's the most hype you will get out of the whole year outside of the festival. So addressing April, everybody's putting in their predictions for the anniversary, what they want to see, what they don't want to see, what they think is most likely, and that in itself makes the game feel good. Even if the releases in April suck, the anniversary hype building up is carrying right now, and as long as the part 1 of the anniversary is somewhat decent, then everybody's also going to be happy. There's been cases where it hasn't been the best. For example, in the second anniversary, Vegito Blue was hyped during the reveal, but the gameplay forced the game to go to one of the worst states it's ever been in. Vegito Blue being so broken, it led to lots of the player base starting to review bomb the game, which is outrageous. Another case of that for a different reason is the part 1 of the third anniversary where they dropped Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta should be a very powerful unit, but he was looking a lot more lackluster in comparison to half corrupted Zamasu, the headliner alongside him. And that was quite the anomaly because the 2 years before, we had only got one Legends Limited to start the anniversary. But in other cases, it's just a banger and nobody is going to complain. If we talk about the 4th anniversary, although it got leaked, it was the first time we'd ever got MUI Goku in Dragon Ball Legends, so he pulled us all in. And it should go without saying the 6th anniversary, where they dropped 2 fusing fusion warriors. No matter which side you're on, it's one of the most hyped things you can get in Dragon Ball. And of course, even if the part 2 isn't as hyped as well, you still get the added benefit of there also being a part 3 and because you're in the anniversary, there's just a lot more to do. You're enjoying the units, assuming you haven't got shafted, but even if you did, there's a lot more content from content creators. The developers are putting in more effort. The overall energy at this point in the year is just outstanding. So the only thing that would really make a difference is if they pull off the incredible feat of fumbling the game during their celebration, which would be because of the meta mechanics they've added or just pure neglect. And more often than not, that isn't the case, thankfully. So I would say this is one of the better periods in the year, if not the best. In my personal opinion, I enjoy it more than any other period in the year. Now here's where things get really tricky, and the overall mood towards Dragon Ball Legends consistently goes on a downwards trend. The third quarter, we've got July, August, and September. These 3 months have the biggest shift from good to bad, hype to unhype. In most recent times, because in July, if not early August, we will get the part 3 for the anniversary. We reach the peak of the year. Everybody wants this unit because it's closing out the celebration. And what tends to happen is, if you don't get that unit, you're not going to enjoy the celebration anymore, because the part 1 units and the part 2 units might not be able to even contend with this part 3 unit. Now that hasn't always been the case. For example, in the 5th anniversary, Gold Frieza, as a result of the developer's buff, was also able to hang with Ultra Vegito Blue, who was the part 3 in that year. But in other cases, such as this year, we have SSBE Vegeta and MUI Goku, who basically seem to be phased out when it comes to them fighting the 2 Ultras, Ultra Final Form Frieza and Ultra Super Saiyan Goku. But I think because the Ultra characters are generally hype, whether they're busted or not, it just appeals to a lot of people want them, and there's a lot of discussion to be had based on the highest rarity unit in the game dropping. But what that should tell you is we've hit a peak, and what happens in most cases when people hit a peak, there's due to be a fall off. So it goes without saying that the next 2 months, August and September, might be the driest months in Dragon Ball Legends throughout the whole year. And this is where the downfall cycle really hits a point where everybody starts thinking, is this it for Dragon Ball Legends? Mind you, Dragon Ball Legends is a game that generates over 100 million every single year, and this year is definitely no exception, especially if we consider the fact that they added the online web store. They're probably raking in way more money than they ever had, but that's an assumption, so I'm not going to stamp it as a fact. Nonetheless, them making money doesn't make it so that the experience in Dragon Ball Legends is the best. I don't think I've played a year in Dragon Ball Legends where the end of July and then going into August were good months. There's been some years where those months were just absolutely terrible. For example, the 4th anniversary. In the part 3, we get Ultra Super Vegito, easily the most balanced Ultra of all time, at least for the meta he was in. For him to just get slaughtered by Final Form Cooler while the game overall is in a dry spell. You tried so hard to get this fancy Ultra just for him to get completely axed. That's dangerous, man, and it completely shifts how people feel towards the game if their unit is completely unplayable just for a unit in the next month that's outside of the celebration to take over. We can also take the 3rd anniversary where we've got Super Saiyan 2 Gohan from the BoJack movie. We didn't have an Ultra in this celebration, but this Gohan completely terrorized the game. So while the game's also getting incredibly dry, there's a unit just completely destroying everybody, and if you don't have him, that's a major shame. And I think problems that we would have had in other points in the year, being at this point where we're falling off from a peak, if the meta is bad, they're gonna start giving out way less Chrono Crystals, they're gonna release a unit that often breaks the game, and on the other spectrum, the unit that they release could just be flat out disappointing. It's always extremely disappointing when we get around the end of July and go into September. It's one thing for the game to not be as hyped because we just left the celebration, but somehow the Dragon Ball Legends developers always manage to make it that people feel like the game is literally reaching its end, and after 7 years of doing the same thing in a row, and with the support system and other factors that I've mentioned, I talk about it in more detail in my previous video, so you might want to check that out. The emotions towards the game, people's tolerance towards the game at this point really reaches its limits. Now at the end of the day, we're all Dragon Ball fans, and we still want to see the outcome for Dragon Ball Legends and what else they're going to release. So in the same fashion of the anniversary, going into the festival, starting the 4th quarter, we've got October, November and December. Everybody starts getting hyped again and gets their hopes up because we'd hope the developers pull out a celebration that will be one for the books. In this case, we've got the festival. The festival is always a banger. So even if October and early November really suck, the festival, we'd hope it changed that. We're gonna get a lot more Chrono Crystals again because it's a celebration. There's gonna be a lot more things to do. So no matter what, the overall mood comes back on an increase. Even for the people that have hit their limit, they're no longer tolerating Dragon Ball Legends during the 3rd quarter. Once we get to the 4th quarter, there's always those same people that peak around the corner wanted to just see if Dragon Ball Legends is actually making the right moves. Even if they're not making the right moves, there's still a sense of curiosity. Like I said, we're all Dragon Ball fans, so we want to see what they're going to release at the end of the year, and if they're going to execute something beautiful or they're just gonna fumble again. We've had some cases where they've dropped absolute bangers. For example, arguably the greatest celebration in Dragon Ball Legends history, the 2021 festival. They dropped Blue Bros alongside Sword of Hope Trunks, and they have triple Z power on the banner. That's wild. And then right after that, they dropped the first summonable Ultra Super Gogeta.
I'm neither Goku nor Vegeta. I'm the one who's gonna take you down.
And all of these units are usable at the same time in ranked PvP. That was really a celebration for the books while they're giving a bunch of Chrono Crystals. Super generous, super good mood. But then we have other festivals that really don't correct things but make things worse. For example, the 2024 festival, coming out of a meta in the dry period with Ultra Margin Vegeta, Ultra Turles, and Triku, the yellow-blue team. All the festival does is amplify a new team that makes things even worse. In the part 1, we get Vegeta, who adds to the infinite combos. In the part 2, we get Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, who adds to the infinite combos. And Ultra Beast Gohan, though he does actually add some balance to the meta, he's not actually correcting it completely, because the team that was dominating pre-festival and how it's been amplified during the festival are still overwhelming that top unit in some cases. So even though they're dropping hyped characters, it's not watering out the bad mood, though there is a lot more to do, and the bad mood itself is a topic of conversation, keeping people around considering it's a celebration. So the festival doesn't have the same effect that Anniversary would. There's still a lot of cases where if the festival doesn't execute itself well, the sour mood from the driest period of the year doesn't completely get uplifted. So in the festival, in my opinion anyways, they have to bring out a lot more effort to make it stick for the player base. Now what can we conclude from all of this? Well, if you was paying attention, I spoke about how as we go into the festival, no matter what, it's replicating the same feeling that we get before the Anniversary, where because there's a celebration upcoming and it's going to be the most hype period in the year, there's always hype being generated for it and anticipation for something good to come. But they've been doing this for every year. The same cycle's been applied, hit or misses in some cases, but knowing that it's going to get worse, and that worse in some cases has been extremely bad, that no matter what isn't exactly true anymore. A large portion of the player base are getting very fed up, and the word I'd like to use would be numb. The idea of a celebration is no longer moving a portion of the player base, and that in itself is very bad news. Of course, the game's generating money, so I still think it's unlikely the game will shut down, and I wouldn't want that for Dragon Ball Legends, as I genuinely do love this game. But as an OG player, and a lot of other OG players, or even if you've been playing for a couple years, like 2 or 3, you're also probably fed up, because the way things are getting worse, it's seeming like it's going to hit a point of no return, and I think that needs to be addressed, which is why I've produced this video addressing the downfall cycle of Dragon Ball Legends. If they continue down this path, it might reach a point where there's literally no point of return, and just the idea of a celebration won't be enough to correct their wrongs. But yeah guys, that's going to be the end of the video. Let me know you guys' thoughts on the downfall cycle in Dragon Ball Legends. I always hope for the best when it comes to this game. I genuinely like this game. I think it stands out so much more than any other mobile game that also isn't a PC game. For example, you can play Gekishin Squadra on your PC. You can play a game like Genshin Impact on your PC. But Dragon Ball Legends is strictly a mobile game, and it really pushes the bounds of what you could do making a mobile game. It's truly super interactive, touching on one of the greatest franchises of all time, Dragon Ball. So only naturally, I'm speaking for me personally, but I know I must be for a lot of you guys, I want it to succeed. We want it to succeed. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you haven't already, make sure to press the subscribe button. We're on this grind to 200,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys for watching, man. My name's Zakashi, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one, man.